Let's go. How are you doing these days, Pedro?
I'm good. I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm fine. It's good. Actually, you're the third Measure Killer member that I have the privilege to talk with and have this meeting with here. First was Gregor, and it was very great session with him. Next, we got a meeting with Klaus. It was a huge meeting, and I got anything that I wanted. And now here we are with Pedro, the third member of Measure Killer. And it's great. It's great to have connected and to have connection with you guys. You are so great. And the product, Measure Killer, is great indeed. And it's great to be connected with you. Thank you, Pedro. It's enough of me, and I cut my talking, and all the scene is yours. What do you got for us tonight?
Thank you. Thank you. At first, let me just quickly introduce myself. Like you said,
Yeah,
I'm
of
Pedro.
course.
I work at Brunner BI for like a year and a half now. I'm a senior developer there. And like you said, I work mainly on Measure Killer with Gregor Brunner and Klaus Folz. And here I am here today to talk a little bit about Power Query, show you guys some quick tips on stuff that I learned in past projects that I think can be useful in a lot of cases. So I hope the tips are useful for everyone.
You forgot to say you're from Brazil.
Yeah, I'm a Brazilian. What I have
Thank
in
you for
store.
accepting my invitation. You know, the pleasure is mine, indeed.
Of course, no problem. So yeah, here I have a sample sales report that basically we use at Brunner BI for testing sometimes. And I'm gonna use this report to show you guys some stuff with Power Query. So let me open that. As you can see, this model has a bunch of tables, and one of them is this D products one, which basically is the registration of all the products in this case. And just for testing and example purposes, I saved this table as an Excel file, and I'm going to import it once again to show you a few things that I want to mention today. So I will just add an Excel source here, which is the D products. It's the same data that you guys see here. It's just an Excel file. And as you can see, I select the sheet here, and then you can see all the different columns, and I'm just gonna click OK. And the table is here, imported from Excel. And the first thing that I want to mention, and the first tip that I think can be useful, is as you can see here on the right, there's multiple steps that Power BI applies from new sources. This changes from depending on the type of source that you add. In Excel files, these are the 4 steps that are added. And I want to talk in my first tip, especially regarding the change it type step, because this step caused me problems sometimes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So as you can see on the top here, this is the code that Power BI creates to change all the types of the columns that you add. And I have 2 problems with this automatic step. The first one is that it adds the type for all the columns, and sometimes in most cases you won't be using all the columns from the table you are adding to Power BI, in Power Query specifically. So most of the time these steps, a part of those will be useless, and you're gonna just be adding information here that you don't need. And also the second issue with this step here is that basically it changes the type based on the first few rows. I don't remember how many rows, and sometimes it can't guess the type wrong. So I think it's always a good approach to remove this step here and add another step manually after you select your columns that you're going to use for your data. So I'm going to explain why is that as well, because like in a regular case, you just do the same that I did here, and then you would, for example, remove the tables you don't need. So let's say I want to keep only the
Remove the
products.
columns that we don't need.
Yeah, the columns. Sorry,
Not tables.
I said table, yes. Columns.
It's
so
okay.
Let's say I remove all these columns here and then just remove them. As you can see, it mentions all the columns that I removed here. And if, for example, somebody goes to the data source, in this case, the Excel file, and just removes a column from here, let's say this column is deleted for some reason, it's not needed anymore, and just save and go back to Power BI. If you refresh your preview here, it will break because it's referenced in the change types tab and even in this tab here afterwards. So
it doesn't work neither.
Yeah, exactly. Those two things break down, and that's why I think the change type is usually a bad idea. So what I do is I just remove this step, and then instead of also like the second tip that I have that is with the first tip is usually I don't use the remove columns for the same reason, because sometimes you have the reference for other tables, and if they are removed, it breaks down your query. So I usually use the other option, which is the remove other columns. In most cases, it will be less text and less information because you keep less columns. And also
it's more readable.
Exactly, it's more readable, and it will avoid deletion in data source like I showed, impacting the query that is not going to even use those columns anyway. So let me show you how you do this. So it's basically like the same. You select only the columns you want to keep, and then you just remove other columns and insert here, and then remove the step that I added before.
It's a better idea to keep the columns that we want rather than the columns we don't want.
Exactly. I had multiple times where I just imported the table and then used it like 2 columns from the table. And then one other thing that I didn't use was removed, and the whole report broke down because of that. So I think this can avoid a lot of issues, and it's more readable, like you said before as well. So yeah,
these are a simple and so simple. It was so simple tip, but it's amazingly useful for me, you know. All the time remove the columns that I don't want, and it generates a big line of query, and I didn't notice that till now, that we can keep the columns that we want. And it's better, you know, if the source changes, we don't get a break here. And it was cool. Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, I've been through this problem before, and I don't think many people do this. So I think it's interesting tip. And like I said before, I think it's always better as well to select manually the types afterwards. I think this is for 2 reasons. The first one is that you know exactly how to treat that column afterwards. And the second one is that it might be mistaken sometimes, like I said. So in this case, I'm going to set all these 3 to text because it's just a bunch of keys and the name of the product. And then, yeah, I think it's always better that you know what the type you're setting.
To handle the columns better, we must delete this step and then manually change the data types.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a good practice.
It's a best practice, you know.
Yeah, it makes a lot of headaches avoidable. For my third small tip, I will show you just a little bit regarding adding new columns. So let's say I want to add a column that is the uppercase of this product name column. So I'll just go to here, and then I will just add a custom column. And I will call it product name upper. And let's just use the text.upper function here. Oops, sorry. And then use the product name like this. And when I click OK, there's 2 things that I want to talk about here. The first one is that, as you can see, the custom column comes without any type. It stays in the general type from Power Query. And like I said before, this is usually not really good because in this case, Power BI decides what's the type of the column. And most people either forget to change the type and leave it like this, which is problematic, or change the type afterwards. So let's say I want to use it as text. And as you can see on the right, it created another step only to change the type, which is a unnecessary step. It's doing like basically the same thing, a small thing in a separate step, and I really don't like this. So what I usually do is I go back to here in the step that I added the column, and I just add the type here. That's an optional parameter here in the function that you can just add here. And you can see, in this case, it just changes the column to type text without needing the type after the next step afterwards. So I think it's really good to clean up useless steps.
Yeah, avoiding to create redundant steps.
Exactly, yeah. Because when you're working like very complex tables, those steps can be like really messy, can create a lot of lines. Yeah. So I think this can help.
They are really headaches. Can be really more headache, you know?
Yeah. I've worked in tables that had like 20 times the change of a type, and it can get really messy. So I think this is just a small tip to clean up one useless step. And if you don't know how to type in the correct step here, you can just add the step like I showed before, and you can just see in the formula bar here the type. Copy this, and then just paste it like I showed in this part.
The previous step, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you don't need this step afterwards. And the other thing that I want to talk about adding a custom column is, as you can see on the right as well, the step name is really generic. So in this time, it just says added custom, which doesn't give us information at all. So I think one thing that I always try to do is renaming my steps so they provide some information. So in this case here, I can just, sorry, let me do that again. I just right click on the step and then click on rename. And then here you can just set the step, for example, as added uppercase product. And in this case, it's way more readable. You can understand what's going on the step. And as I said, if you add a lot of columns, it will always add the same name for the step. So it will just add a number in the end, like added custom 1, 2, and 3. And it can get really confusing to change stuff afterwards. So I think renaming is always a good practice. And
yeah, I can see. Pedro, we can also comment for steps, you know, using the double backslash and make comments for each step, and it shows with an icon on the step that explains more about our step.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's another best practice.
Yeah. That's one of the things I was gonna say, that you can go here to the properties and add a description, like you said. That's really, really useful as well. So you can write here added uppercase column because we were having case issues, for example, explaining why you added that step and why it's important. And like you said, it just adds an eye icon here, and you can hover over and see in the tooltip why the step was created. So yeah, that's for sure.
It's my favorite part, you know.
Yeah, I love that.
I have a struggle with all the Power Query that I face in my work life. You know, why the previous person didn't make any comments on these steps, and I must get over that myself. And it's really best practice to have the comments and proper name inventions in our steps.
Exactly. Yeah. I think for people that already like inherited some older parts from other people, know the struggle when it's not commented anything. So yeah, I think it's a great tip. Thank you for adding that. And
thank you. And you know, you went with the tagline. the quick tips and great impacts. Your
Yeah,
tips were so super quick and super impactful. I'm
thank you.
enjoying
Thank you.
that.
Nice. Yeah, that was my intention. And yeah, I have one other quick tip. Actually, it's just some information that people usually don't know exists. Like I showed before, you can right click here and there's a bunch of options here. I think, and I think these options are really, really useful. And I think people don't really use them a lot. So for example, the
I'm
delete
one of the
until end.
people who don't use them.
Yeah, it's really
Teach
hidden.
me all of them.
Yeah, it's really hidden and people don't remind that they exist. So for example, here, like if I have a bunch of steps that I don't want, let's say all the steps below are not useful for me anymore, I can just right click and then delete until end. And this will just delete all the steps below. So if I do this, it will delete the step I selected and every other step below that. So for example, here I deleted even the promote header step, which is automatic. And I can even add this back in with using this button here. I heard some people like panic when they delete this step, but you can just add it back here, creating this button. So I think this is really useful if you want to delete a bunch of steps instead of clicking the axis here. You can just delete until end.
Beautiful.
And also, if you want to insert a step between two steps, you can use the insert step after here instead of creating a new step and then dragging it around. It's kind of useful as well. And I think the most useful one for me is the extract previews. I've used this a bunch of times before, and this is usually
I haven't seen that before.
That's basically an option that allows you to separate the query that you are creating here into two different queries. And this current query will reference the other one that's created. So let me show you how this works. So for example, if I want to use the source for different things, for two different queries, for example, I can, but I don't want to promote the headers in every case. I can just extract the previews here. And basically, it just asks me for a new query name. So let's name it like source query. And when I click OK, what it does, it creates a new query here in the left, as you can see, which has the steps before the one that I selected. And my current query, instead of having all the steps again, it just references the new query that I created and just has all the steps below that one are kept the same. So this is really useful because you can branch out a query in a lot of other queries by doing this. And I think it's something people don't realize that exists. I'm
one of them. I just realized it now. Thank you so much. Obrigado.
Obrigado.